Miss Yuhu, the rebellious one, refused to marry General Yuan Buchio, who had already killed 2 of his wives. But Miss Yuhu was unwilling. Her mother advised her not to speak of inauspicious days when it came to her wedding. Her mother argued that with all the wealth her father had received, she had to marry. Miss Yuhu believed her mother was pushing her into a fire pit. Her maid mentioned that it was Duke Du from the northern part of the city who was truly pushing his daughter into a fire pit by marrying her off to a sickly young man in Linzhou for a quick wedding to ward off bad luck. Miss Yuhu declared that if she were Miss Du, she would rather die than marry. In an attempt to convince Miss Yuhu to wear the veil, the maid praised her, saying she had always been an obedient daughter who cared for her father and mother. However, Miss Yuhu remained unwilling to wear the veil. Miss Li Yuhu chopped up the red headscarf into 4 pieces with her sword. What a mess! In a hurry, Master Li asked Zhang the matchmaker to buy a new red headscarf. However, Miss Yuhu was reluctant to get into the bridal sedan chair. Master Li told her that if she didn't, General Yuan would not spare her father. Ms. Li's parents knelt before her, begging her to get married. In the end, Miss Yuhu gave in, saying, "Fine, fine, fine. What can I do? I am your daughter, after all." The new red headscarf was finally purchased, featuring a beautiful design of mandarin ducks playing in the water. It was time for the auspicious hour, and the bride got into the sedan chair. But Master Li was worried, and so he gave Gan the matchmaker some sleeping powder to make his daughter fall asleep. Miss Du's parents are worried about her marriage. Her mother said, "Daughter, it's time for you to get married. Look at your father. He's angry. Have some pity on him." Miss Du remained steadfast, expressing her willingness to marry Mr. Qi, even though he is gravely ill. Her father tried to persuade her, saying, "We've already reached an agreement with the Qi family. Although Mr. Qi is seriously ill, you can still receive half of their wealth, and you can return to Yangzhou to remarry. If you bear a child for the Qi family, won't all their wealth be yours?" Upon hearing this, her mother scoffed, "I can't believe you said that." The obedient Miss Du explained that the Du family's business is on the brink of bankruptcy, and to repay her mother's nurturing grace, she is willing to marry Mr. Qi, even if he is a sickly man. Her mother understood her daughter's intentions and knew she was considering the family's well-being. As everyone urged them to hurry, the auspicious hour arrived, and the bride needed to get into the sedan. It was time to depart. Today, the Du family and the Li family in the northern part of the city are both sending off their daughters in marriage. To avoid losing face and to gain some prestige, the Du family's wedding procession has already set out. The master of the Li family instructed his servants to carry out the sedan chair and leave just before the Du family's procession arrives. By doing so, they will be ahead of them, which is called borrowing momentum to show off one's wealth. The Dus and the Lis gathered on the same road, with the Lis leading the way and the Dus following closely behind. The two families set off in a grand procession. Suddenly, the weather changed drastically and a heavy downpour began. They quickly ran into a fairy temple to take shelter from the rain. Strangely, the temple was completely empty, with an eerie silence and an atmosphere that felt uncanny. The maidservants from the two families met and began to chat. Xiaoxi mentioned that their family married off Miss Li to Jingzhou, while Mei Xiang's family married Miss Du to Linzhou. One has to travel north and the other south. Realizing that their meeting might be the last time they see each other in this lifetime, they felt a sense of sadness. The two maidservants continued their discussion about their mistresses. One, a martial artist with a straightforward personality, and the other, a talented and skilled woman who had to marry a man with a fatal flaw to save her family. Both faced inner conflicts and resignation. Naughty Miss Li complained that the sedan chair was too boring. She said there were only the two of them, so she asked Miss Du to come out as well. When the obedient Miss Du stepped out, they noticed that their clothes and even the sedan chair's cover were identical. Miss Li complimented Miss Du, saying she was as beautiful as a celestial fairy, while she herself looked like a water duck in a pond. Miss Du, on the other hand, was like a graceful crane flying in the sky. Miss Li believed she couldn't compare to Miss Du, as the latter came from a scholarly family with a rich background in academics, while she was merely the daughter of a martial arts school's owner. Miss Du praised Miss Li, saying she was not only beautiful but also lively and spirited. She also mentioned that they were getting married on the same day and had sought shelter in the temple during the rain, which she thought was a sign of fate. The two women, feeling a bond of shared misfortune, confided in each other about their woes. One was to be married to a wealthy, ailing man as a last resort to bring him luck, while the other was to wed a general who had a history of enmity with her family and had even caused the deaths of his previous two wives. Subsequently, they offered prayers to the Buddha for protection and peace. Under the witness of the Bodhisattva, they pledged sisterhood to each other. To commemorate their meeting, they exchanged tokens of affection, a crystal crane and a jade stone. The rain gradually subsided, and the crowd gathered in front of the fairy temple, ready to depart. However, a monk warned them of an impending arrival of robbers, urging them to leave quickly. Everyone was confused. The monk, anxious, explained that the robbers had threatened to take the temple's revenue and offered them 200 silver coins if they paid within 3 days. Otherwise, they would raid the temple. Today is the last day, and by then, everyone will be robbed. Everyone was panicked. They shouted to flee, quickly arranging for the sedan chair carriers and the bride to run away. The sisters, who were also getting married, hurriedly reminded each other to cover their faces with their veils and wished each other well. In the confusion, they took each other's veils, and as a result, the matchmakers mistook their identities.
错不了，我那个是鸳鸯戏水，也错不了，错不了，错不了，错不了。走了。走吧。来，林妈妈。哎，您走吧。
Their wedding entourage parted ways at the fairy temple. The matchmakers were full of confidence, and the teams were joyful. Then they went in two opposite directions, south and north. Unbeknownst to them, they had been traveling for a whole day. The sedan chair bearers must have been exhausted like donkeys, so they planned to eat and rest at the inn before continuing their journey. After a long day of traveling, Liuhu began to feel hungry and instructed her servant to bring her something to eat. Upon seeing each other, they were both confused, and Liuhu realized she had gone to the wrong place. The servant hurriedly called out to the matchmaker, exclaiming that there was a mistake. The matchmaker, upon seeing the wrong bride, examined the dowry and veil and was left with a puzzled expression, unable to hide her confusion and amusement. The servants demanded the return of their master. The brides wanted to go back to their hometown, Yangzhou. They anxiously discussed how to deal with this troublesome situation. They believed that since they had each traveled for a day in opposite directions, north and south, it was already too late to return to Yangzhou. The matchmaker believed that the auspicious wedding date for the sick young master must not be delayed. If they missed the date and the sick young master died, they would not be able to bear the responsibility. In ancient times, the bride and groom had not met each other before the wedding. Miss Du insisted on sending her to her fiancé's family. The matchmaker was afraid that the people from the general's mansion would not dare to spread the news, so she comforted Miss Du and asked her to have a meal and rest first. To prevent Miss Du from exposing their mistakes to General Yuan is Miss Li's fiancé. The matchmaker remembered the slow-acting sleeping pills given to her by Master Li. Regarding the important matter of marriage, the matchmaker attempted to muddle through and leave the mess for them. She secretly put the sleeping pills into Miss Du's meal. The matchmaker and the maidservant cried out that Miss Du was on the brink of a great disaster. They believed that by missing the auspicious day to marry the sickly young master for the purpose of wedding to dispel illness, Miss Du was bound to suffer greatly. They accused Miss Li of being insincere and capable of saving Miss Du, but choosing not to act. This was because Miss Li had revealed to them the sisterly bond she had formed with Miss Du at the fairy temple. Overwhelmed with guilt yet hesitant to act rashly, Miss Li felt conflicted. The matchmaker insisted that they had come too far to turn back now. She proposed that Miss Li should impersonate Miss Du and go through with the wedding to dispel the illness. According to the matchmaker, once the sickly young master passed away, Miss Li should impersonate Miss Du and go through with the wedding to dispel the illness. According to the matchmaker, once the sickly young master passed away, Miss Li should impersonate Miss Du and go through with the wedding to dispel the illness. Miss Lee could then make her escape. Encouraged by this plan, Miss Lee decided to make the best out of a mistake and impersonate Miss Du.
好，冰燕姐，我就替你去了。哎呦，谢谢冰小姐，你可真是个活皮子！哎呀，起来吧，起来吧，姐，我一辈子伺候你怎么样？